Let me start with the demand pull inflation here. But before that, understand this very carefully. Basic idea is this. In the market, the price levels of commodities. In the market, the price levels of commodities could be increasing because of supply side factors, or the price levels could be increasing or becoming higher because of demand side factors. Now, what do you mean by supply side factor and demand side factor? For example, raw material cost increases. Raw material is a supply or a demand side factor. Now, again, if you want to be very clear, supply means producer side, demand side means consumer side. Okay, so raw material, supply side or a demand side? It is a supply side. Import cost, supply side or a demand side? Supply side. Labor wages or labor cost, supply side or demand side? Supply side. On the other hand, demand side, incomes of households. Incomes of households, right? How incomes of the households will determine the inflation or will have an impact on the inflation? If incomes become higher and higher, obviously the demand for goods and services will increase. That will add to inflationary trend in the market. Another reason, the monetary policy or the policy of government of India to increase the expenditure. I've used two terms here. Please understand this. Generally, in case of Indian economy, the most important two policies, again, apart from these two, there are many other policies. The most important policies are one, monetary policy, and the second one is called as a fiscal policy. We'll discuss both of them separately, but because I'm using the terms here, let me give you a brief idea here. Monetary policy is the policy which is framed by Monetary Policy Committee, MPC, or else I'll simply use the term RBI. Most of the times I'll use RBI, but to be very precise, to be very technical in nature, it is actually fixed or decided by the Monetary Policy Committee. Don't worry about this now. We'll discuss this in detail when I take up RBI. But basic idea is, in case of the monetary policy, using certain set of tools which are at the dispense of this particular committee, they will regulate the money supply. Is it okay? They will regulate money supply. When I say regulate, they will either increase the money supply or decrease the money supply. On the other hand, with respect to fiscal policy, it is decided by the government. Is it okay? It is decided by the government. Generally, there is no definition for fiscal policy. Generally, what we say is, any decision that is taken by the government with respect to the revenues, and expenditure is called as a fiscal policy. For example, idea of a taxation, concept of a disinvestment. Again, don't worry about these particular terms. Right now, we'll have a detailed discussion on this when I take up the fiscal policy in detail. So understand this. In the market, the price levels of a basket of goods and services or commodities could rise up because of a supply side factor or because of a demand side factor. Whenever this particular price level is increasing because of a demand side factor, we'll simply call this as a demand pull inflation. There are various demand side factors which are acting together, or there could be one demand side factor, right? Don't worry about it. But essentially, there are demand side factors which are acting in the market. As a result of this, the price levels have started increasing. Price levels have started spiking or moving upwards. This particular feature is called as a demand pull inflation. If you want to be very technical in this particular case, it simply is a situation wherein the demand is increasing compared to supply. Demand has spiked up compared to what is the supply in the market. And this particular demand will start pulling up the price levels in the market. Is it okay? The higher demand will start pulling up the price levels in the market. Hence, this is called as a demand pull inflation. On the other hand, if the supply side factors are adding to the higher price levels, are leading to increased price levels, then this is called as a cost push inflation. Now in this particular side, let's discuss demand pull inflation, and then we'll take up the supply side inflation. Now, for example, why there's a demand pull inflation in any of the economy? First, I've written increasing forex reserves. Now, what is the idea here? Understand the concept very, very carefully. Imagine here is a foreign company this particular foreign company will bring in dollars to invest in India. Is it okay? This particular foreign company will bring in dollars to invest in India. For example, they want to set up a manufacturing facility in India. But whenever they bring in dollars, follow this, whenever they bring in dollars, please understand they cannot invest dollars in the domestic market. In India, we use which currency? We use rupees. So what they need to do is convert these particular dollars into rupees. Is it okay? They need to convert these particular dollars into rupees. So this is one kind of a transaction. On the other hand, there is another type of a transaction wherein these particular investors, what kind of investors? Do not worry as of now. There are investors who would wish to withdraw their investments, take out the money from the domestic market, and they would want to take out in terms of which currency? Dollars. So understand this, they have their investments in terms of rupees. Can they take out rupees out of domestic market? No, they will have to convert them into rupees. Essentially what they'll do, they'll take their rupees into the forex market. What is forex market? Foreign exchange market. So in the foreign exchange market, this will basically facilitate conversion from a foreign currency into domestic currency. Is it okay? From one currency, that is a foreign currency, you can get them converted into rupee, that is a domestic currency. On the other hand, this particular market, same market, will also allow conversion of the domestic currency into these particular foreign currencies. Essentially what I'm trying to say here is there are various transactions which are happening in the market which will lead to either foreign currencies flowing into India or foreign currencies flowing out of India. Either of the transaction will be taking place, right? Or to be more precise, both of these particular transaction will be taking place in the market. Now how this is connected to inflation? Let me explain that. So have a look at this. Imagine a lot of foreign companies are bringing their investments into India. Is it okay? Lot of these particular foreign companies are bringing lot of investments into India. So what will happen? It will basically lead to higher dollar supply in the domestic market. Is it okay? Follow this sequence very carefully. Lot of foreign companies are bringing dollars into India. Can they invest these particular dollars in the domestic market? No, they are not allowed to invest. They will have to get these particular dollars converted into rupees. So have a look at this. When there is a lot of dollars which are flowing into India, they need to convert these particular dollars into rupees. So can I simply say this is a situation wherein the supply of dollars in the domestic market is increasing and the demand for rupees is increasing. Is it okay? Have a look at this. The supply of dollars is increasing as well as the demand for rupees is increasing. Now please understand, RBI cannot allow this particular situation to continue without any control. Is it okay? Strictly speaking, follow this very carefully. Whenever this situation arises, we will simply say rupee will appreciate. Is it okay? Rupee will appreciate. Again, don't worry about the term appreciation, depreciation right now. Simply assume what I'm saying is correct. Again, having said so, it doesn't mean that it is not important. I'll discuss appreciation and depreciation in detail when I take up the foreign trade. So have a look at this. Whenever there's a huge inflow of the forex reserves like this, on one side the dollar supply is increasing and on the other hand rupee demand is also increasing. This essentially leads to appreciation of rupee or appreciation of the domestic currency. RBI does not allow this to continue without any control because this particular spike in the appreciation will have certain impact on the overall economy. So what RBI does in this particular situation is very simple. RBI will go to this particular market or intervene in this particular forex market and start selling rupees. Is it okay? Start selling rupees and buying dollars. I have to understand the logic here. Why is RBI doing this? RBI is basically trying to stabilize the exchange rate where right now because of a huge amount of inflow of dollars, it has increased the supply of dollars and increased the demand for rupees. So rupee will start appreciating. So RBI will intervene in the market and try to control this particular exchange rate by doing what? By selling rupees and buying dollars. So have a look at this. On one side, there is already higher supply of rupees because the foreign companies are converting the dollars into rupees and they're investing in the domestic market. In addition to this, To control appreciation of a rupee in the domestic market, what is RBI doing? RBI is selling rupees, which means the supply of rupees in the domestic market increases. When there is a very high amount of a supply of rupees in the domestic market, we simply use the term liquidity also increases. Is it okay? Remember these particular technical terms. When the supply of rupee increases, the total availability of rupee in the market also increases. This is called as a liquidity. So the amount of rupees in the domestic market in the form of liquidity has increased. And when liquidity increases, there is a concern that this will cause inflation. Is it okay? This will cause inflation. Higher rupee supply will lead to too much of a money running behind too fewer goods. And that is the reason we are putting this particular idea of increased forex reserves causing inflation under the concept of demand pull inflation. First one. Second one, in case of the economy, I said that there are two very important policies. One is a monetary policy and the other one is a fiscal policy. Now understand this, whenever monetary policy is used in case of a country such as a developing countries or for that matter even developed economies, what will happen is there will be higher money supply in the market. Is it okay? Now again, do not worry about how the money supply is going to increase because I'll discuss this in detail when I take up monetary policy. But essentially what I'm trying to say here is because of these kinds of policies, the money supply in the domestic market increases. And when there is too much of money supply in the domestic market, this is expected to cause inflationary pressure or inflationary trends in the market. So in case of a demand pull inflation, we have taken care of the demand pull inflation by looking at increasing forex reserves, by looking at loose monetary policy, which basically means increased money supply. But in addition to this, even government of India's policies can add to inflationary trends. What do you mean by this? Let me give a very simple example here. Government of India provides financial assistance in the form of a subsidy. Now, what do you mean by subsidy? Follow this very carefully. Subsidy is the assistance that is provided by the government. Now, this particular assistance could be provided by the government to household, to an individual, or to a company also. Is it okay? Right? Government will provide assistance in a different ways to different stakeholders in the market. For example, government will provide a subsidy in the form of a cash or in the form of a kind. That is the monetary assistance or the kind assistance. For example, have a look at this. Government of India provides a subsidy in the form of a reward, that is a monetary assistance for exporters in the form of a RODTEP scheme, remission of duties and tariffs on export products, which we'll discuss later. Earlier, Government of India used to provide a same kind of reward, but under a different scheme called as a MEIS scheme, merchandise exports from India scheme. So idea is the assistance can be given in the form of a cash. I'll give you another example. PM Kisan, Pradhan Mantri Kisan Samman Nidhi. Under this, Government of India provides income assistance of 2000 rupees to the farmers in India. Or the assistance can also be given in the form of a kind. What do you mean by kind? Monetary assistance is not involved in the form of a kind assistance. Let me give an example so it is clear to you. There is a food program run by Government of India in the name of National Food Security Act. Is it okay? There is a food program which is being run by Government of India in the form of a National Food Security Act. Under the National Food Security Act, identified beneficiaries are provided food grains at a subsidized cost. Under the concept of NFSA, the government ensures the identified beneficiaries are provided with food grains at a subsidized cost, that is at a lower cost. For example, under NFSA, Government of India provides rice at 3 rupees per kg, wheat at 2 rupees per kg, and coarse grains at 1 rupee per kg. Whatever could be the actual cost of this, but Government of India will ensure that when these particular food grains are provided to the identified beneficiaries, these are given at subsidized prices. So there is no monetary assistance here, right? The subsidy is already provided by the government in the form of lowering the market price or the issue price of these particular commodities. So whenever I'm using the term subsidy, simply remember this. It is an assistance that is provided by the government to the beneficiaries either in the form of monetary assistance or in the form of a kind assistance. Okay. So have a look at this. Government of India through its policies such as subsidies or the income tax policies might also increase the overall demand in the market. For example, there are various welfare payments which are given by the government to the destitute people, to the poor people in India, to the people who have lost their spouses. So government of India is providing certain cash assistance to these particular people. And can it be said that because of these particular welfare payments which are provided by the government, these kinds of subsidies which are provided by the government to the households, the overall demand for goods and services in the market will increase. And when the demand will increase, as a result of this, the price levels increase. This is called as a demand pull inflation. I'll give you another example. The government of India's policy in terms of income taxes might also lead to demand pull inflation. How so? Let's take a very simple example. Imagine your income is 100 rupees. Okay, imagine the income is 100 rupees. And out of this, let's take an arbitrary number here. Imagine the income tax rate is 20%, which essentially means what? 20% out of 100 rupees is given to government of India in the form of a tax. So you are left with how much rupees? 80 rupees to consume, to spend as well as to save. Now what if government of India reduces this particular income tax rate from 20% to let's say 5%? So when the income tax rate is reduced to 5%, again please understand this is not how the income tax are calculated. There's a slab system. But don't worry about it. Let's take an arbitrary number here. So imagine government of India reduces this particular income tax rate to 5%. As a result of this, now you will have how much rupees to spend or to save? 95 rupees. So you will have more money now to spend in the market. So when the money that is available in the households or in the hands of the consumer increases, can I simply say that the overall demand in the market, when I say overall demand, you can simply use the term aggregate also. So the aggregate demand in the market will increase, and when the aggregate demand increases, this might also lead to demand pull inflation. Done? So have a look at this. What we are discussing? The causes of inflation. Within causes, we have already taken care of a cartelization, hoarding, etc. Now we have taken care of the demand pull inflation also. Let's go to the next one. The cost push inflation. Now what is the basic idea of a cost push inflation? Have a look at this. As earlier mentioned, the inflation in the market could be caused because of the supply side factors as well as the demand side factors. Already we have discussed the idea of a demand pull inflation, which is basically taking care of the demand side factors. Now let's have a look at the supply side factors which are causing inflation, which is essentially called as what? Cost push inflation. Now some of you will simply think, why we are using the term cost push? Why not anything else? Why we are using the idea of a cost push here? Simply understand this. Because of any of these particular factors, any one or multiple factors, the cost of production increases or cost of a supply increases. Is it okay? Because of any of these particular factors, cost of production increases. And when cost of production increases, you can simply assume that this is related to higher market prices. Is it okay? For example, let's take a very simple example. You are manufacturing this particular pen. Okay, you are manufacturing this particular pen. To manufacture this particular pen, you are sourcing plastic. Plastic is a raw material. Is it okay? Imagine earlier, the cost of the plastic was at 10 rupees. Okay, cost of the plastic was 10 rupees. Along with all the other factors of production, right, other costs were 90 rupees. So you were ready to sell the product at 100 rupees in the market. Now imagine the cost of plastic increases from 10 rupees to 13 rupees. The cost of plastic increases from 10 rupees to 13 rupees. So one of the two things will happen. If you want to continue to sell the product at 100 rupees, follow this very carefully. If you want to sell it at 100 rupees, you will have to reduce the second factor. And second factor also involves what? Your profit. Is it okay? It involves a transportation cost. It involves a labor cost. It involves how much profit you want to earn. It also involves the taxes that are imposed by the government. So have a look at this. If you want to continue to sell it at 100 rupees, you will have to control this particular factor, the remaining 90 rupees. You will have to reduce it to, let's say, 87 rupees. How can you do that? You will have to reduce your profit margin. Is it okay? You will have to cut down your profit margin. But now the argument is, you are there in the business to earn profit. Is it okay? You are basically involved in the business. You are doing the business to earn profit. Why will you cut down your profit motive? So what you will do? You will continue with the 90 rupees itself. As a result of this, what will be the cost of this particular product in the market now? It will rise up to 103 rupees. So plastic is what? Raw material. So whenever the raw material cost increases, I'm using raw material, can I replace that with input cost or cost of inputs? Whenever the cost of inputs or cost of raw material increases, what will happen to the market prices? Or before that, what will happen to cost of production? Cost of production will increase. When the cost of production will increase, the market prices automatically will increase. I'll give another example. Transportation cost. Transportation cost. Transportation cost is also part of the supply side factor. Is it okay? It is also part of the supply side factor. And please understand this, higher the transportation cost, or if the transportation costs are higher, generally the market prices will also be higher. Because please understand this, the manufacturer, when he is about to sell the product to you, you are there in the market, but the manufacturer or the seller has to move the product from the factory to the market. And when they are moving the products like this, obviously they are going to incur cost in the form of a transportation. And whatever is the cost of transportation, they are going to add it in the market price and they are going to sell it to you. So understand the logic here. Whenever there is a demand side factor, right, and this particular demand side factor is increasing the demand, as a result of which the market price are increasing, that is called as a demand pull inflation. And on the other hand, whenever there are supply side factors which are pushing up the cost of the product, is it okay? Whenever there are supply side factors which are pushing up the cost of the production or the market prices of the goods, which is leading to inflation, this is called as a cost push inflation. For example, whenever the wages of employees will increase, that will add to input cost, or it will lead to higher cost of production. Increased taxes. What I mean by taxes here? Indirect taxes. Again, more about direct and indirect taxes we'll discuss in detail under taxation. But example for this is goods and services tax. Let me give an example here. Imagine you want to sell the product at 100 rupees in the market. Government says a 10% GST will be imposed on this. Essentially means what? In addition to your selling price of 100 rupee, government will add a 10 rupee tax. As a result of this, you will sell the product at 110 rupees in the market. Now have a look at this. Your selling price will remain the same 100, but Government of India will increase the GST from 10% to 13%. So 13% on 100 rupees will be how much? 13 rupees. Now you will be forced to sell the product at 113, essentially meaning market prices have increased. So when government will increase the indirect taxes or will hike the indirect tax rate, that will also lead to cost push inflation. Increased price of raw materials, we have already discussed this, and a supply shock. Now what is the basic idea of a supply shock? Have a look at this. Imagine, just hypothetical situation, imagine this. The COVID situation will continue. As a result of this, the total supply of raw materials, will be contained. Is it okay? The supply of raw materials is contained means what? Because of the pandemic, government will impose lockdowns. Government will not allow people to move from one state to another state. Don't you think that will have an impact on the transportation sector also? Or to be more precise, it will definitely have an impact on logistics sector. And logistics is very important for a simple reason. In case of India, the products are moving from one state to another state. Raw materials are moving from one state to another state. When these kinds of restrictions are imposed, this will disrupt the supply chain. Is it okay? This will disrupt the supply chain in the market. That is, imagine you're a manufacturer, but to manufacture this particular product, you require raw material which you will have to purchase from some other state. Seller is sitting in some other state. But because of the pandemic, there is a restriction on the movement. So it will be very difficult for you to get access to the raw materials. That is basic idea of a disruption in the supply chain. That will basically push up the market prices. Is it okay? That will basically push up the market prices. Or else, let me give you another example. Agriculture sector. Very, very important. All of us will agree that agriculture sector is very important. But what if in a particular season, just understand this, what if in a particular season, there is excess rainfall in India? During one of the very important cropping seasons, there is a very, very high amount of rainfall in India. As a result of which, there is a huge amount of flood situation or floods are experienced. Now, can I simply say that because there is a flood, production in the agriculture sector will be affected? Production in the agriculture sector will be affected. In simple terms, there is very, very low production. As a result of this, what do you think will happen to supply of agriculture commodities? That will be very less. So demand for agriculture commodities is already there, but supply is very, very less. As a result of this, the market prices will start moving upwards. But more importantly, understand this. The market prices are moving upwards because of the supply side factors. Is it okay? Because of supply side factors, right? That is essentially why this is called as a cost push inflation. Done? So increased wages, increase in indirect taxes, increased prices of raw material, as well as supply shocks, right? All of them will lead to cost push inflation. Now, in addition to this, I want to add one more important parameter or one more important cause for a cost push inflation. That is a concept of a fiscal deficit. Is it okay? Concept of fiscal deficit. Now, before I connect fiscal deficit with inflation, let me give a very brief idea of what is fiscal deficit. Please follow this explanation very carefully. Again, we'll discuss fiscal deficit when I take up budgeting. Idea is very simple here. Government annually comes out with a budget. Is it okay? Government annually for every financial year will come out with a budget. What do you think they will do in the budget? Basically, they will announce how much expenditure they are going to incur and how much revenue they are going to collect. I'm using the term revenue. Some of the books will use the term receipts here. Okay, follow this very carefully. Government says in this particular year, financial year, how much I'm going to spend and how much I'm going to collect. And generally, the amount of expenditure incurred is higher than the revenue collected. Is it okay? Amount of expenditure incurred is higher than the revenue collection. Means what? Let's throw an arbitrary number here. If Government of India is spending 100 crore rupees, it is collecting only 80 crore rupees in the form of a revenue. So there is a shortfall of how much here? There's a shortfall of 20 crore rupees. Is it okay? There's a shortfall of 20 crore rupees here. And how does Government of India basically take care of this particular shortfall? Because if you're spending 100 crore and collecting 80 crore, you will have to get this particular 20 crore somehow. So what the government does? Government will borrow this particular 20 crore rupees from the market. Is it okay? Government will borrow this particular 20 crore rupees from the market. So when government borrows this particular 20 crores, this borrowing is called as a fiscal deficit. Is it okay? This particular borrowing is called as fiscal deficit. Now have a look at this. When government borrowings will increase, follow the statement very carefully. When the government borrowings will increase, then can I simply say demand for money in the market will increase? Is it okay? I'll repeat the process here. When the government borrowings will increase, or else I'll replace the statement with when government's fiscal deficit will increase, demand for the money in the market will increase. Demand for overall money in the market will increase. So when the demand increases, what do you think will happen to interest rates? What do you think will happen to interest rates? Interest rates will also start rising upwards. I'll repeat it again. It's very technical. Follow this very carefully. I am saying in this year, the demand for money from the government side has increased. Why? Their expenditure is much higher compared to the receipts or the revenue that they are going to collect. So when the demand from the government side increases in the market, along with the private sector, even the government is borrowing, taking loans from the market. So when the demand for money increases, the interest rates in the market will start rising upwards. So have a look at this. In the market, there is a private sector which is borrowing. Private sector means companies. And there is also government which is borrowing. Because government's demand for money or borrowing has increased, the interest rates will also increase. Is it okay? The interest rates will also start increasing. Let's say hypothetically last year the interest rate was 6%. Now because government wants to borrow more, interest rate will become 7%. What is the problem here? The problem is government will borrow because they want to spend, government will borrow. But look at the private sector. Last year when they took loans from the market, what was the rate of interest? 6%. This year they want to take loans from the market. What will be the rate of interest? 7%. So if they borrowed 100 rupees last year, in the form of interest they paid 6 rupees. But for the same 100 rupees, now they are paying 7 rupees, which essentially means, follow this very carefully, when they borrow at a higher rate of interest, this will get added to cost of production. Is it okay? Because obviously they will have to pay this particular 7% rate of interest on 100 rupees. When these particular companies are borrowing, any rate of interest that they are going to pay to the lender, they will add it in the form of a cost of production. So when the rate of interest or borrowing cost increases, this will also add to cost of production. And the cost of production increases means market prices will also increase. Is it okay? When the cost of production increases, the market prices will also increase. And when market prices increase because of the supply side, all of this is supply side. I'm not talking about the demand here. I'm talking about the supply side. When the market prices will rise up because of the supply side factor, this is called as what? Cost push inflation. So remember this very carefully. Higher fiscal deficit of the government might also cause a cost push inflation in the market. Done? So what we have done, we have taken care of demand pull inflation as well as the cost push inflation. Now the third type I want to discuss is the idea of a structural inflation. But before I discuss, please remember this. This is a part of cost push inflation itself. It is part of cost push inflation. Now what is the meaning of this? Let's try and understand. Whenever I'm talking about a structural inflation, this refers to increased price levels in the market of basket of commodities because of certain structural issues or structural bottlenecks in the system. Is it okay? I'll explain this. Follow this very carefully. This particular inflation is happening because the price levels are increasing. The reason for that is there are certain structural issues or bottlenecks in infrastructure in a particular economy. Let me elaborate on this so that you understand it. Have a look at this. In case of India, here is a production in the agriculture sector. Imagine this is agriculture field. After the commodities are produced, in simple terms, there is a cultivation and sowing of let's say rice, wheat, pulses, fruits, vegetables, etc. Is it okay? So you cultivate horticulture products also, you cultivate agriculture commodities also. Essentially this is cultivation taking place where? In the agriculture field. But here is the market where all of us are present. Is it okay? Where all of us are purchasing. Between the fields or the farm gate where the cultivation happens and the market where the purchasing and consumption happens, there are various stages. Is it okay? Between the farm gate where the cultivation happens and the market where consumption happens, purchasing and consumption happens, there are various phases or stages which are involved. For example, there is a transportation, there is a warehousing or storage. Is it okay? There is a transportation, there is a warehousing or storage. So have a look at this. In case of India, this is infrastructure, this is also infrastructure. Is it okay? Warehousing is infrastructure, storage is infrastructure, transportation is infrastructure. In case of India, there is a problem with respect to these kinds of infrastructure, as a result of which all that is produced will not reach the market. First point. Is it okay? All that is produced does not reach the market. How much we produce, some of it is lost, it doesn't reach the market. First. Second, because of certain structural issues, for example transportation, there is a higher market price of these particular commodities. Let me elaborate on this. Transportation, right? Understand this. This is involved to ensure that the products will reach from point A to point B. Okay, we move the product from point A to point B and we go through the idea of a transportation or concept of a transportation. Now understand this, in case of India, the cost of transportation is on a higher side. Is it okay? Cost of transportation is on a higher side. Now you'll ask me, sir, why it is higher? Understand this very carefully. There are different modes of a transportation that are available to man. Okay, there is a waterways, inland waterways which could be used for transportation. There is a roadways which is used for transportation. there is also railways which is used for transportation. Is it okay? Waterways is there, roadways is there, railways is there. In case of India, more than 60% of the total freight transportation, that is more than 60% of the goods transportation takes place through roadways. And a very fraction of this, less than 10% of the transportation takes place through waterways. And remaining takes place through roadways as well as the air route. But what is the issue here? When I make a comparison between the waterways, the roadways as well as the railways, the waterways is always efficient. Is it okay? Waterways, a mode of a transportation, is the most efficient mode of a transportation. In what way? Fuel consumption is lowest. Efficiency of a fuel is highest. Cost of a transportation is lowest. Emissions caused is lowest. Is it okay? So when you evaluate the three modes of a transportation under these particular parameters, that is efficiency, fuel consumption, cost of a transportation, emissions, again causing pollution. When you compare these three modes of a transportation, which is the most important, most efficient mode of a transportation? Waterways. But in case of India, waterways is used the lowest in terms of a freight transportation. It is the roadways which is most inefficient. In terms of what? Consumption of fuel, very, very high. Emissions, very, very high. Cost of a transportation, very, very high. So in case of India, because we are using majorly the roadways as a mode of a freight transportation, the cost of a transportation is higher. Is it okay? Cost of transportation is higher. And in addition to this, understand this. When I say roadways, we expect majority of the transportation through national highways as well as the state highways. That is, in simple terms, when you compare other roads in India, that is, let's say public roads in villages, public roads in cities, municipal roads, etc., the quality of these roads is much inferior compared to national highways as well as state highways. But the national highways and state highways, in terms of a percentage, in terms of proportion of total length of the road network in India, comes somewhere around 5%. Is it okay? Out of the total road network length in India, only around 5% of the length of this road network is in the form of a national highways and state highways. And we are using roadways as a most important mode of a transportation in India. So cost of transportation generally will be higher. So don't you think that is a problem with respect to infrastructure in India? Definitely yes. So have a look at this. When there is a problem with a bottleneck like this, when there is a problem with respect to infrastructure like this, we'll simply add it as a part of the structural inflation. And more importantly, understand this, infrastructure, right, such as a transportation, warehousing, storage, is it a supply side or a demand side? Your answer should be, sir, it is supply side factor. And because this is supply side factor, we'll basically say structural inflation is a type of a cost push inflation itself. I'll give another example why there's a structural inflation in India. Storage. Please understand this. Whenever there is a sowing that is done in case of agriculture sector, whenever there's a sowing done, you get agriculture commodity, that is the crops will start growing, and then there's a harvesting done. In case of India, we do not use better technology for harvesting, as a result of which some of the produce is lost there itself. Even if you get this particular produce, then there's a concept of a storing this particular produce. You will have to warehouse this particular produce. For example, in case of a horticulture products, we generally use the term shelf life is very short. Is it okay? What do you mean by horticulture products? Example, vegetables, fruits, right? These are horticulture products. And we say that shelf life of these particular products is smaller, is shorter. What do you mean by shelf life? Shelf life basically refers to the time period. It refers to the time period for which the product remains consumable. For which time period the product remains fit for consumption. It is called as a shelf life. For example, milk. Right? What is the shelf life of a milk? Right? If you keep the milk open, it will very soon right, become spilled milk. It will lose the quality. Again, in the same way, look at a product such as fruits. Can I keep the fruits open in the open environment? Can I keep it in the sunlight? Very soon the quality of this particular fruit will deteriorate. After a couple of days, it becomes unfit for consumption. So idea is simply this. When you compare the horticulture products such as vegetables, fruits, etc., with agriculture commodities such as rice and wheat, the shelf life of these particular horticulture products is shorter, is smaller. So what we need to do is provide cold warehousing, scientific warehousing. Is it okay? So that the quality will be maintained. We will extend the shelf life of this particular product. But in case of India, with respect to cold chain infrastructure, which we'll discuss further under agriculture sector, with respect to cold chain infrastructure, there's a huge amount of a shortage. As a result of this, some of what is produced will not reach to the market. It will become lost or it will be unfit for consumption. So that will create, right, there is a imbalance that is created between the supply and the demand. And because this is a supply side factor, understand this, because this is a supply side factor, we'll simply write it as a part of the cost push inflation, but more importantly, part of structural inflation first. Done? So these are some of the reasons how you can experience a structural inflation in the domestic market. Now, in addition to this explanation, I've given one cause here, scarcity of a foreign exchange reserve. Okay, scarcity of foreign exchange reserve. Now, how it is connected to cost push inflation, let me elaborate on this. Follow this very, very carefully. At certain periods of time, earlier I've told you this, at certain periods of time, there is a sudden outflow of the forex reserves. Is it okay? That is, there is a sudden outflow of foreign currencies from the domestic market. Now, what will happen? Follow this very, very carefully. Whenever there's a sudden outflow of foreign currencies like this, we'll use a specific term here. It will lead to depreciation of a rupee. Is it okay? It will lead to depreciation of a rupee. Now, what is the basic idea here? Imagine $1 is equal to 50 rupees and this will change to $1 is equal to 60 rupees. Is it okay? $1 is equal to 50 rupees. Then it becomes $1 is equal to 60 rupees. Follow this very carefully. If the rupee exchange rate against a dollar moves from this to this, that is from $1 is equal to 50 to $1 is equal to 60, we will simply say rupee has a lost value against a dollar. Is it okay? Rupee is losing ground against a dollar. But technically, we'll use the term depreciation. And whenever the foreign currencies will flow out of India like this, for example, foreign investors want to take out the money from India, they will supply rupees in the domestic market. They will sell rupees and they will demand dollars. They will purchase dollars. So when there is a higher supply of a domestic currency in the forex market like this, it will lead to depreciation of a rupee. Now, what is the impact of this? Follow this very carefully. Imagine yesterday or last month, I imported a raw material when the exchange rate was $1 is equal to 50 rupees. Now, I'm importing this particular raw material when the rupee has depreciated from $1 is equal to 60 rupees. So what has happened? With rupee depreciation, these particular imports have become costlier. Is it okay? For example, imagine you're a manufacturer, you're manufacturing this particular pen, but this particular plastic that you're using is imported into India. Because of this particular depreciation, which you have seen because of a sudden outflow in the forex reserves like this, because of the depreciation, what will happen? This particular plastic will become costlier. And when the plastic becomes costlier, can I simply say that the raw material has become costlier? And when the raw material becomes costlier, right, what do you think will happen to market price of the product? Market price will also increase. That will lead to cost push inflation. But please understand, we are putting this under structural inflation because whenever this will happen, RBI tries to intervene in the market and tries to adjust the exchange rate. But if RBI doesn't have sufficient amount of forex reserves, this particular adjustment cannot be done by RBI. So if there's a scarcity of a forex reserves, that might add to the structural inflation like this. Done? So these are the causes. Based on the rate of inflation, we have discussed one classification, and based on the causes, we have discussed another classification of inflation. Please be very, very careful with respect to the latter part, that is the causes of inflation. Now, although I'll tell you how the inflation rate is calculated, my recommendation is please do not mug up the calculation. UPSC is not concerned about calculation, but they are worried about the understanding of concept of the inflation. Right? For example, in the last 10 years, if you see the question papers, which I strongly recommend you people to do, UPSC has never asked, right, let's say how inflation is calculated. But definitely, yes, UPSC has asked question on whether you understand the concept of inflation. Do you understand the concept of a headline and core inflation, which I'm yet to cover? Do you understand the concept of a WPI, CPI, so on and so forth? So please be very, very careful with the concepts. Now you'll simply ask, sir, if the UPSC is not asking, why are you teaching us the calculation? Because I want you to understand what is the importance of weightages, which I'll come across when I discuss concept of a wholesale price index, when I calculate the concept of a CPI, consumer price index. So when I'm discussing CPI, I will tell you that the food has got the highest weightage. And when I'm discussing WPI, I'll tell you that the manufactured products have got the highest weightage. But you must be able to understand what is the importance of the weightages. For this, let me take a very simple example. Assuming this is how inflation is calculated. Okay. Assuming there are three commodities. In fact, there are large number of commodities. Let's assume only three commodities are there. X, Y, and Z. Out of these three, let's assume X is a commodity which you consume on day-to-day basis. Is it okay? On everyday basis. For example, milk, onion, vegetables, fruits, pulses, etc. Now, can I simply say that even a slight increase, even a marginal increase in the market prices of these commodities will put a large burden on the households? For example, here is a household which is consuming pulses on day-to-day basis, tomato on day-to-day basis, other protein sources on day-to-day basis. If the market prices of these agriculture commodities, horticulture commodities, etc. increase marginally, let's say by 1 rupee or 2 rupee also, the household will experience a huge amount of a burden on this. Right? So that is the idea here. X is a commodity which is consumed on day-to-day basis. I've given the highest weightage for this, 60%. Why? Let's say is a commodity which is consumed on monthly basis. So obviously frequency of consumption is much lesser. I will give lesser weightage. And Z, let's say is consumed once in 3 months, once in 2 months. The frequency is very, very less. Hence I've given the lowest weightage. So X will have the weightage of 60. Y will have a weightage of 30 and Z will have the weightage of 10%. Totally, it should carry a weightage of 100%. Now have a look at this. After considering weightage, what is the price of these particular commodities in the base year? BY stands for base year, right? Assuming the price of commodities are 20 rupee, 10 rupee, 500 rupee. I'm arbitrarily taking numbers here, okay? Then I'll compare these particular prices with current prices or prices in the present year. Currently, what is the price for the same commodity? Have a look at this. For X, the price has increased from 20 to 24. For Y, the price has increased from 10 to 11. And for Z, the price has increased from 500 to 600. Is it okay? I'm assuming the prices of all the commodities are increasing. But in reality, the vice versa might also happen. Some of the prices might increase and for some others, prices might also decrease. Don't worry about it. I'm assuming prices of all the commodities are increasing. What will I do? I will calculate price ratio. That is basically the present year prices divided by base year prices. For example, what's the present year price for the X commodity? 24 divided by 20. Obviously, the value will be 1.2. For Y, it is 11 divided by 10. Value will be 1.1. And for Z, it is 600 divided by 500. Value will be 1.2. Just make a correction here. 1.2. Now have a look at this. It is 1.2, 1.1 and 1.2. Now I'll take these particular price ratios and I'll multiply them with weightages. I will multiply that with weightages which are given to individual commodities. X has a weightage of 60%. So 60 into what is the price ratio? 1.2. Outcome will be 72. For X, weightage is 30% into 1.1 is 33. For Z, it is 10% into 1.2 will be 12. So get the summation of all the three weightages now. It will be 117. So have a look at this. In the base year for the three commodities, the weightage was 100%, but in the current year, based on the present prices, the weightage has increased to 117. Is it okay? From 100, it has increased to 117. I'll simply conclude that the inflation rate is 17%. Is it okay? Inflation rate is 17%. So this is how either WPI or CPI is calculated. But you don't have to mug up the calculation. Calculation is not important. But you need to understand why weightages are important, why weightages are given with respect to the calculation of both these parameters, WPI and CPI.